The Vietnam War often reduced to memes and catchphrases. Today was a complex and tragic conflict. Let's go beyond the surface and explore what really happened, why it started, what the sides wanted, and how it ended. Locating Vietnam. Vietnam is a long, narrow country in Southeast Asia, bordered by China to the north, Laos and Cambodia to the west, and the South China Sea to the east. Its strategic location and rich resources have made it a focal point of regional and global interests for centuries. Colonial century mais 135. French colonisation. In the mid-19th century, France conquered Vietnam and incorporated it into French Indochina. For decades, Vietnamese nationalists resisted colonial rule, World War II, and Japanese occupation. During World War II, Japan occupied Vietnam, while France under Vichy regime retained nominal control. This dual oppression fueled resistance. Rise of the Viet Minh. In 1941, Ho Chi Minh founded the Viet Minh League for the Independence of Vietnam, a nationalist and communist movement aiming to expel both the French and Japanese. First Indochina War 1946 to 1954. After Japan's 1945 defeat, Ho Chi Minh declared Vietnam's independence, establishing the Democratic Republic of Vietnam (DRV) in the north. France, seeking to restore its colonial empire, went to war against the Viet Minh. Key developments. The U.S., concerned about the spread of communism, began supporting France financially and militarily. By 1954, the U.S. was funding 80% of France's war effort. The war culminated in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu 1954, where the Viet Minh decisively defeated French forces. Geneva Accords 1954 and division. The 1954 Geneva Conference temporarily divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel. North Vietnam Dierv, Lai Bao Chi Minh is governed. South Vietnam, nominally independent but under strong French and later U.S. influence. Elections to reunify the country, scheduled for 1956, were never held due to opposition from South Vietnam and its U.S. backers, who feared a communist victory. Escalation and U.S. involvement 1955 to 1964. In South Vietnam, a U.S.-backed government led by Ngo Dinh Diem took power. His regime was unpopular and authoritarian. This led to the rise of the Viet Cong National Liberation Front, a communist insurgency in the South, supported by the North, increasing U.S. military aid and advisors to South Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident 1964 gave the U.S. Congress the pretext to authorize military action. Full-scale U.S. intervention 1965 to 1973. In 1965, the U.S. sent ground troops to South Vietnam, marking the start of large-scale combat operations. Key aspects. Ultrasonografia strategy. To find and destroy. Doctrine relied on superior firepower and air power influence. Viet Cong and NVA tactics. Guerrilla warfare. Extensive tunnel systems, for example. Cu Chi tunnels, ambushes, and knowledge of the terrain.
External support. North Vietnam received crucial aid from the USSR and China, including anti-S-75 one anti-aircraft, missiles that challenged U.S. air superiority. Public opinion. The war became deeply unpopular in the U.S., fueled by televised images of combat and events like the My Lai Massacre, 1968. By 1969, the U.S. began Vietnamization, a policy of withdrawing troops and transferring the fight to the South Vietnamese Army. Endgame and Legacy 1973 to 1975. Paris-Peace Accord 1973. The U.S. agreed to withdraw all troops in exchange for a ceasefire. Finaloffensive 1975. After the U.S. departure, North Vietnam launched a major offensive. South Vietnam, weakened and lacking U.S. support, collapsed. Fall of Saigon, the 30th of April 1975. North Vietnamese forces captured the South's capital, reuniting the country under communist rule. In 1976, the Socialist Republic of Vietnam was officially established. Key outcomes. Humankos. An estimated 5 million people died, the majority civilians. Nearly 60,000 U.S. soldiers were killed, and over 300,000 wounded. Political impact. The war deeply divided American society and led to a crisis of trust in government. It also shaped future U.S. foreign policy, creating a Vietnam syndrome reluctance to engage in long-ground wars. Global context. The conflict was a key episode of the Cold War, demonstrating the limits of U.S. military power against nationalist guerrilla movements. Vietnam today. After years of isolation, Vietnam has opened its economy and established relations with the U.S. and other nations. Why did the U.S. lose? Nature of the conflict. The U.S. fought a nationalist war of independence, not just a communist insurgency. Many Vietnamese, even in the South, saw the U.S. as a foreign occupier. Guerrilla warfare. Soviet Cong's tactics negated U.S. technological superiority. External support. North. Vietnam's access to supplies via the Ho Chi Minh Trail through Laos and Cambodia, and aid from the USSR, China was critical. Domestic opposition. Growing avassentiment. In the U.S., eroded political will to continue the fight. Morale and discipline. U.S. troop morale suffered from the war's length, complexity, and perceived lack of progress. Conclusion. The Vietnam War was not a funny thing. It was a brutal conflict rooted in colonialism, nationalism, and the Cold War, its legacy millions of lives lost, a divided America, and a reunited but scarred Vietnam, serves as a powerful lesson on the costs of intervention and the strength of national self-determination. Chronicles of Time, unveiling the past, one story at a time.